Hey y'all, this is your girl Sonja, and welcome back to She Say Sports. I have back with me today sports writer of the New Orleans Advocate, Rod Walker. Rod, thanks for joining me again.
Thanks for having me on 2 weeks in a row. I feel
know.
special.
You are special. Little do you know, you may be on here with me until this is over. So just kind of enjoying talking to you about this docuseries. It's been kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it as well. So
yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
Absolutely. But before we get into that, thanks. Last night you told me to come into your Facebook Live with this violinist. He was really good. What was his name?
His name is Dominique Hammonds, and he's actually from Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a video back in, I guess it was during football season. He did a video at a wedding, and he was playing the song, the Chopper style song,
mm-hmm.
and it went viral. And obviously that song is, it's pretty big here in New Orleans because the Saints sort of use it as kind of an anthem after they win games, and so it sort of took off here. So the New Orleans Pelicans invited him to do a halftime show here, and that actually happened to be the last home game before the COVID-19 stuff. So anyway, he performed at halftime, and out of all the halftime performances they've ever had that game, I don't know if they've ever had one where he got that sort of reaction from the crowd. I mean, everybody stayed in their seats to watch him, and the place just went nuts. And anyway, he just sort of started to kind of take off a little bit, and the Pelicans had him on their Instagram last night. And then he did his stuff on his own page as well, like right after that. So that's what that was that I had on my Facebook page. But, yeah, he's really talented.
And his name is Dominique what?
Hammonds, Hammonds, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
but he's from Houston. He's based out of Houston.
Yeah, well, and that's pretty cool because a lot of my listeners are Houston Prairie View area. So, that's really dope. He was really good. I don't know if you saw what I put on there. I actually used to play violin for 12 years. And
yeah,
I
saw
was
that,
all city, all state and junior high and high school, and then I had an orchestra scholarship. I was a voice major, but they gave me a partial orchestra scholarship, and I hate when I see, violinists like that, I'm like, dang, I wish I had kept playing because although I love playing classical music, I'm a hip-hop baby. So being able to play hip-hop and contemporary music on your violin, that first of all, the instrument is amazing. That's so awesome, and I love Damien Escobar. He's one of my favorites. I was actually going to see him before this COVID thing started.
Yeah.
So
we had violin classes growing up in Yazoo City, and I didn't take them. I didn't take any band courses. Unfortunately, I sort of wish I had learned to play the drums or the tuba or something, just because I think it would have been cool to do. But but the violin was sort of a big thing even back then, and people were learning to play it. And I don't think any of those people actually continue playing it. But, I mean, for a year or two, they all learned how to play the violin, which was pretty unique, I guess.
Yeah, especially for, not now, but back then you didn't see a lot of people of color playing.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Orchestra music, it was either drums, guitar, piano.
Right.
And so when they mentioned it I was sixth grade, and when they mentioned it at my school, I was like, well, I want to play because my friends wanted to play, and then my mom went and bought a $500 violin, and then they was like, oh, we're not playing. I was like, oh, Mom, I don't want to play. She said, oh, you're playing. So I was forced to play, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad I was forced because I really, truly enjoyed playing. I did.
Yeah.
I did.
When I was growing up, my mom bought me a guitar for one Christmas, an electric guitar. It was light blue. And this may have been a time, like, right after Purple Rain came out. I think I wanted one. But all of my friends, like, one of us had a drums, one had a bass guitar, one had a keyboard, and we were going to try to start this group. None of us had any music talent whatsoever, but we were going to just try to start a group anyway. And I never learned how to play the guitar. Like, I bought books trying to learn. I didn't get it. Like, I couldn't understand it. And anyway, it was a wasted investment because we got absolutely nothing out of our instrument.
Why, did you ask your mom to buy you one, or?
Yeah, I wanted one for Christmas. I mean, that's what I wanted because we were, like I said, my friends and I, we were going to try to start a group. We thought we were like I think we wanted to be like ready for the world. That's what we were sort of.
Did you have a curl?
I never had a curl. Actually, none of my friends had curls except it was like a few girls that had them, but like none of the guys that I hung out with had curls. It just I don't know how we avoided it, but I guess we couldn't afford it probably.
Yeah.
'Cause they were paying like $40 to get a touch up every 6 weeks or whatever they were calling it or something. But no, I didn't get the curl.
Well, see, my mom, she did hair. She was a hairstylist, and I begged her for a curl, and she was like, "No, you're not." She wouldn't give me one because Michael Jackson was out,
right,
James, and I wanted a curl, but she was like, "No, thank you." So I'm glad she did now, and shockingly, they're still around. I was actually getting my hair done, and the lady was getting the curl, and I'm like, "This smell smells so familiar."
So familiar, yeah.
And the girl was like, "She's getting a curl," and I was like, "You are lying to me," but it was true.
Did you remind her that it was 2020?
No, I did not. It was an older lady. I minded my business.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that's okay then.
Yeah, she's stuck in the 80s, so I was like, I'm gonna let her have it. But the NFL virtual draft was last week, and you covered that. It was Thursday through Saturday. Give us some. Of course everybody knows, but who were the first round picks and all that good stuff? Let's talk about that real quick.
It all starts with Joe Burrow, who, he obviously played here at LSU, and he's a guy that, people down in Louisiana where I am, like Joe Burrow will be a legend here for the rest of his life, just for the season he had at LSU. He went 15-0, won a national title. He won the Heisman Trophy. I'm sure they'll have a statue built for him outside the stadium at some point. I just think that's how big he was. He's just a hero here, and they just love him. And now he's going. The Bengals picked him with the first pick of the draft, and he's from Ohio originally, so he's it's a chance for him to go back home and try to lead that team to do the same thing he did with LSU up there. And that's obviously going to be a tough task because of who the Bengals have. But you look at him, and then Chase Young went second from Ohio State. Those guys at the top of the draft, and then the Saints picked the offensive lineman from Michigan. So I don't know if there are really any surprises in the draft. And just some of your local people in Mississippi. Cam Akers from Clinton High School was drafted by the Rams, which
that's right.
He went in the second round. I think that was a really good pickup for them because they just lost Todd Gurley, the running back, and so I think Cam. I think it's a perfect situation for him. And a lot of times in these drafts, you don't really go to a team where you fit, but I think that's just a perfect fit for him. And I think his career is going to be really, really special. And he's a guy that, he rushed for over 1,000 yards at Florida State and didn't even have a really good offensive line. So I just think he has a chance to be a really good player with the Rams.
That's good. And don't forget the Cinderella story. I was so happy for him. Jeff Okudah, he was number 3 in the first round.
Yeah. He was number 3. Another Ohio State guy. And Joe Burrow's career started at Ohio State. So you had top 3 guys all played together in college at one point.
That is so
that's incredible. Yeah. So
I'm excited for them. Well, you said there weren't any surprises in the draft, but there was some surprises. Not necessarily the players, but their girlfriends. How did you feel about some of the antics that were going on with some of the girlfriends? CeeDee Lamb's friend. Go ahead.
First of all, I like the fact that the draft was virtual this year, and instead of us seeing the players sitting at a table or in the audience and they stand up and hug their parents. They were like in their homes, and it was different to see that. It was, they basically had to pick the people that were really close to them. You couldn't have all these people in there, but just going to the girlfriends, I think the first one was, I guess was CeeDee Lamb first. Yeah, he was the one. His girlfriend tried to, reach for his phone and.
No, she didn't try. She took his phone.
She took his phone. I was trying to play it down a little bit. No. She tried to glance. She tried to check his messages for him to try to help him respond to all the messages because his phone was going up.
Okay.
Anyway, he wasn't going for it. He took it back, and they ended up, being all over the internet, which I mean, this is the world we live in now. Everything's on the internet, and they sort of blew up, and, you know, it sort of came out that she had dated Trey Young, who played basketball in Oklahoma and plays with the Hawks now. So, yeah, I mean, I think we all know that's sort of a no-no. You don't grab a guy's phone because you're going to probably get embarrassed on national TV, and that's what happened to her.
Well, Rod, it looks like that wasn't her first time doing that, though. She was too comfortable grabbing his phone.
Right,
She's done that before. So I think because of the situation, he, like pulled it back or whatever, but she's done that before, so that wasn't the first time.
Yeah, I think she had done it before, yeah.
Yeah, and what about...
And I think when you're on TV, that was the thing for these athletes, like, when you're sitting there just sort of, you're just watching TV and watching the draft, and I think sometimes you kind of forget that this isn't just a normal you sitting at home. This is, those cameras are in there. And I think you just kind of forget. So I'm sure he would have, if he had thought about it, he probably would have reacted differently. I'm sure he didn't do that with the intention of it blowing up and going all over, going viral.
Oh, like he did. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other young man, what is Isaiah? Went to the Titans? Is it
from Georgia. Isaiah Wilson. Yeah.
And
I can't remember who drafted him, but
yeah, he went to the Titans. His girlfriend. Okay, they called his name, and he puts his hat over his. Most of them put their hat over their head because they, got emotional. But the dramatics with it though, she slowly leaned in and just laid her head on his head, like, babe, you did it. Okay, first of all, that
wasn't a baby you did. That was a baby we rich. That's what that was.
Yes, he did, and it was just like, but when the mom, I'm sure we couldn't hear it, but I'm assuming the mom was like, get up, and she didn't. And first of all, you don't mess with a black mama. Let's get that straight. Do not mess with a black mama with a child, especially
right.
She didn't get up, and I can tell the way that played out. They, they're not too chummy with each other because I just can't see it how she snatched her up. But go ahead.
I think it was I was just sort of trying to look at body language of different parents and just the interactions that whole night. Mm-hmm. I think there was a lot of that. I mean,
yes.
I mean, when you had your son and you raised him for 21 years, and you've been there for him, and then this girl is sort of just probably been with him 2 years. They're kind of grabbing some of the spotlight. I think most moms, especially black moms, they will have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Especially when it's someone of the other race. I mean, I just think that's, that's just.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's just how it is.
No,
that's how it's going to always be.
That's how it's going to be. And the thing about it is, I don't have an issue with the girlfriends being there. Not a problem. However, that's their moment. And they took away from their moment. So when 10 years from now, when they mention the coronavirus virtual draft, they're going to mention CeeDee Lamb, but they're going to bring up the fact that he, snatched his phone out of his girl's hand. And Isaiah, he, his mama snatched his girl up. It's going to kind of take over the moment for them. And that's, I mean, if they're going to be there because they're not wise, sit down, clap.
Yeah, just sit down and let them have his moment. Him and his parents have his moment.
Yeah, lay on his head after, but that was for TV. And I just had a problem with that. Then there was another player, I can't remember his name, but his girl was dressed like she was going to the club. She had on a gold dress. Did you see her?
Yeah, I can't remember whose it was, but I do remember that, yeah.
But when they called his name, she looked to make sure she was in the right camera so she could kiss him. And I'm like, are y'all okay?
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of thrown off. I mean, it's like, have your girl there, but, there needs to be some boundaries to some extent. That was not cool. But, whatever. But congratulations to all the draftees, the young men that will be playing in the NFL next season or whenever we start. Hopefully it won't be, long. But, well, let's get right on into parts 3 and 4 of The Last Dance, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. It seems the docuseries, it's like it's getting better every week. part 3 and 4 was everything that I thought it would be. And Dennis Rodman, I mean, just imagine if Dennis had not made it to the NBA. Some things, it's like, I can't imagine, you know, just his dominance in the game. We would have never known him. We would have never known his antics. You know, just not knowing him would have been like, I think we would have been cheated. So it's like, I'm so glad it was just destined and ordained for him to make it, because, you know, he was living on the street. He was homeless.
Right.
So, but as I mentioned on the last show, I didn't want Dennis to come to the Bulls initially because I didn't trust him. However, I'm so thankful Jim Stack pulled the trigger on this, because he was definitely the difference maker for the Bulls. He was an experienced winner, one of the greatest rebounders in the league, and he knew how to be a nuisance to the other team's players. What was your take on what was your takeaway from Dennis' journey with the Bulls?
I think one of the things about Dennis that they talked about that I really thought was interesting is when he was talking about, and obviously Dennis is known for his rebounding, but they had like a little segment where he was just talking about his rebounding and how much science went into it. I mean, he was studying opponents and how their balls come off the rim, and I mean, rebounding was really a science to him. It wasn't just, I mean, he was phenomenal at it, especially for his height, but I mean, it was something he put a lot of work into. It wasn't just It wasn't just athleticism. I mean, it was some brain power going into it too. I mean, he just developed his craft and knew all that stuff. So, I mean, he was just a guy that they definitely needed. They needed someone to just do the dirty work, and they found a guy in Dennis who didn't mind doing the dirty work. I mean, that's kind of who he was, and he didn't mind. He didn't even care about scoring. I mean, he did score some, but that wasn't even important to him. He just wanted to get rebounds and give his team another opportunity to have another shot because you're getting a rebound. So that's just what he did, and they needed him.
And, well, you mentioned the science and what he was studying the players. Even Mike said he was one of the smartest players he ever played with. And, you know, like you said, I never knew that side. I just thought, you know, he getting rebounds.
We thought he was just out jumping everybody and out hustling everybody. That's kind of the perception we had. And as you saw, I mean, it was more to it than that. And,
absolutely.
It was like a really good part of the documentary. And they even played the song "Party Man," the Prince song.
By Prince,
it sort of goes exactly who Dennis was. I mean, because Party Man was, you know, the video he was.
That's who he was.
He was just like the Joker in that Party Man video, and that's who Dennis was. I mean, he was kind of, you know, the Joker, like the kind of the villain, but a guy that you sort of liked too. So that's who he was.
That's a very great example. That was a great analogy that you said. You know, he was partly villain, but then it was, you know, because sometimes people are like, oh, Dennis, you know, it's too much, but I like it. But
he's one of those guys that you want. If he's on your team, you love him, and if he's not on your team, you probably hate him. I mean, that's who Dennis was.
I did. Yeah. That was you just explained who I was.
Yeah,
that is true. But we saw when Dennis started dating Madonna, he apparently came into his own. He saw he could still be productive on the court. He was a wild hair, and he needed to have that freedom to be him off the court. Now, he was with the Spurs at that time. He was too much for the Spurs. The Spurs play fundamental ball, and they go home. They've never been that team who wants to be in the spotlight or have a lot of attention. So, you know, him moving on to the Bulls. I mean, and think about it. Him coming from Detroit. Detroit is a big city, you know, very lively. I lived in Dallas for 9 years, and, you know, I visited San Antonio. San Antonio is a home. I mean, it's a family-oriented town.
Right.
You know, they got the Spurs. They got, what is it, the SeaWorld. It's really nothing, you know, it's not an exciting place.
Yeah. It's probably the worst city for Dennis Rodman other than Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh, yeah.
San Antonio was probably the worst city he could have ended up in because it just wasn't a good fit for him.
It was not a good fit for him, period. And so, he would have been very, even though he can fly in and out, you know, to do what he needed to do, it just was not the place. So when he came to Chicago, that was a great fit for him. You know, Midwest, that's what he played for in the first place. So that was a good fit for him. But what I love, Rod, I love the most about Dennis and Phil's relationship was that Phil saw Dennis because he used to be Dennis.
Right.
And I never knew Phil's dad was a pastor, nor his journey to becoming one of the winningest coaches in NBA history. But he knew he had to allow Dennis to be Dennis if he wanted to get the most out of him. And Dennis mentioned when Scottie came back, he felt like the third wheel. I mean, it's like it was just him and MJ. And so when Scottie came back, he felt a little pushed out when he came back. Do you think if Scottie had not have come back right away, would he continue to be the model citizen that MJ said he was?
If Scottie hadn't come back, I don't know. I think all that stuff played out exactly like it needed to. I think Scottie needed to come back.
Yeah.
And I think, Dennis had to take his little vacation and all that, but I think all that was just needed. I think they needed to do all that. I don't know if Scottie hadn't come back. I don't know if Dennis.
He couldn't have held on that long.
I don't know how long he could have held on to being that person that he was, and maybe he could have, but I don't know if he could have.
What I think, because when Mike said, Scottie was not Scottie. I keep mixing their names up. Dennis was the model citizen while Scottie was gone. He was, come to work, do what he needed to do, go home. I think he admired and respected MJ so much that, it was like, I got to, this is a winning team and I got to keep this going. So I'm like, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's like a parent and the oldest kid goes off to college and then the younger brother feels like, okay, I need to step up now. So I think Dennis did appreciate that role that he had to play and like being, kind of responsible for something almost. And I think he embraced that role.
Yeah.
And again, I just don't. I guess when you see some of Dennis's antics, I hate to use that word, but when you see that, you just almost think, okay, that's who he is, though. So I sort of think he needed to be that person too. So.
Yeah, I agree. He needed to, in order to just, because you didn't really see, you just saw the bad boy side of him with Detroit. We didn't see that other side of him again until he got with Madonna. And sometimes, that's why, parents watch who your kids are dating because sometimes it can be good or bad. And I think her helping him see who he really was not a bad thing. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but he needed to be who he was, and that probably was on the inside of him, but because he had to, I have to be an NBA player, I have to be a role model, this and that, and it probably was just too much for him. And she was like, no, be you. I think you'll be more you'll be more what they need in a player if you're able to be you.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that.
You mentioned Vegas. That was so funny to me.
I don't remember that. I remember him going to Vegas, but I don't know. I remember hearing about his trip to Vegas, but I don't think back then, I don't think I knew that he asked for a vacation. Like, I don't really remember that part of the story.
I vaguely remember it.
Yes, I think
I vaguely remember it, but Phil knew he had to let him go.
Right.
And when Mike was like 48 hours, he ain't coming back.
He ain't coming back, yeah. But that's what made Phil such a great coach. I know he's a good coach as far as A's and O's, but he knew how to manage all those different personalities. Yes. Even when he was in L.A., he did the same thing. He was dealing with, the personalities in L.A. That's what separates Phil. He's a people person. I think he knew which buttons to push and what motivated people, and that's why they were so successful. And I think he probably deserves a lot of. He gets a lot of credit anyway, but I don't know. Some people don't give him credit. They say, "Oh, he had Jordan, he had Pippen, he had Kobe, just whoever."
No,
but you still got to be able to juggle those personalities, and that's what he did.
Thank you. And
and everybody can't do that.
Everybody can't do that. Even with how he was able to convince Michael, we talked about that last week. He convinced Michael that he needed to, allow me to create a team. Don't let me just put it around you. Doug Collins focused on Mike, but, Fields
Right.
focused on the team. And
Right.
so when he finally convinced him that, we can really do more if you allow the team to grow,
Right.
that's when they clicked. Everything
Right.
clicked for them. And you're absolutely right. So it's just, I also like the fact that Mike and Scotty accepted Dennis for who he was. They played against him, so they understood who he was. We know what he did to us in Detroit. He can do the same thing to these other people, but we got to let him do him. So that was a good thing. It was like it was kind of like a brotherhood to me. That's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah.
And
He was the rebellious. Yeah, he was the baby brother, the rebellious brother, but you still love him, and you just know how to. They knew how to
deal with him.
know how to deal with him. Right.
That's true. So, speaking of Detroit, let's get on to these bad boys. First of all, I hated them. I mean, when I see any of them from the team, especially Bill Laimbeer, I want to fight. Laimbeer was the dirtiest of them all. Come on.
Yeah,
seriously.
He was.
He was so dirty. And it was just like, back then, it was like the referees. I'm like, do y'all see them killing? It was just crazy just to see them play. I used to get nervous when they would play the Bulls. And, they, of course, back then, MJ was known as a scorer at that time. And they came up with the Jordan rule, which meant pretty much don't allow MJ to take flight. Do you think without the Jordan rules, the Bulls could have gotten past the Pistons?
Probably not. I think they had to. You saying without it?
Yeah, without the rule.
So I think that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying because they really was like trying to make sure he didn't score, because he was the top scorer on the team.
Right.
So
Right.
I
think they had to. You had to stop Jordan somehow. I think they did that and just was hoping that, okay, we're not going to let any of the other guys beat us, and it ended up not working. But I think that was their best chance to win. I think Detroit knew that, and they tried it, and it worked, and then it didn't work.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, it didn't work, I guess, when it came to them. First of all, I thank God that they made Michael tough. They made the Bulls tough because
they made him. Yeah.
They made him tough, and even I believe when I say and you saw Lord, you saw it, Rod. They was kicking his butt for real. So I'm thinking, remember, they talked about the rivalry on the first part with his brothers. He was playing, so I'm like, I wonder if they was kicking his butt when he was a kid then, he was the youngest. No, he's the middle child, right? He's the middle boy. Mike is.
Yeah.
And, but they were, like probably double teaming him then. So with that plus, the crap that the Pistons was doing to him, his psyche was like, I can't give up. And all, that's why I call the league soft now, because some of the stuff that they were doing to him, he kept playing.
Right.
And
I think and they needed that. Chicago needed that to get to where they were, because if they had cruised past Detroit without all that stuff, I don't know if Michael wouldn't have got stronger, and they wouldn't have got Scotty wouldn't have been as tough, and so they needed to go through that to get them to where they. I think it made them tough, not only physically but mentally as well. And they needed it. They definitely needed it.
They needed it bad, and we saw them in the gym working out, and that was their focus. And I heard an interview of Isaiah the other day. He was like, that's what athletes are supposed to do anyway. They're supposed to be working out.
Right.
And and I get what he's saying. I'm sure they were doing that, but not to the degree that they were doing. To that point where it was like, this is my focus. I got to get myself, because they were too small.
Right.
And, it was amazing to see when we finally swept them. Oh, God. It was the sweetest thing I had ever tasted at that time. Do you understand me?
Yeah, and the league was just that's how the league was back then, though. It wasn't, players sort of, everybody sort of stayed where they were, and you just knew. Like Detroit knew they had to go through Boston, And it took them a while. They finally got through Boston. And then Chicago knew they had to go through Detroit. I mean, it's just kind of the way the league was back then. And you just kind of kept trying until you did it. And eventually you would probably do it. So, I mean, that's how it was.
And, on that same interview, Isaiah, he was like, he said pretty much the same thing. He said, I mean, we had to get through Boston. And that, of course, and I'm going to get to that next. And he was like, and yeah, they had to get through us. But at that point, we were older. And, it was just their time. But the handshake gate, that's where it brings me now. Handshake gate. As we know, after the Bulls swept the Pistons walked off the court without shaking the Bulls' hands. And MJ discussed this as well as Isaiah. What was your take from both of their feelings on handshake gate?
I think going back to when I was a kid, when I was watching it, when it actually happened, and even today, like sometimes I see players walk out without shaking hands. Like it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers most people. Because I just feel like they lost, they're hurting, and they just get caught up in it and just walk out. So it doesn't really bother me. And it didn't even bother me, even going back and watching it doesn't bother me. But I think obviously there was some bitterness between the two teams. And I even remember, and I actually went back and looked up to make sure that I was remembering this right. But like after Game 3, Jordan had made a comment about how the Pistons were bad for basketball, and I think the Pistons were really just pissed off about that, and so I think that, and they didn't bring that up in the docuseries, but I just think there was just so much bad blood, and they just okay, they beat us, we out of here. And I mean, looking back on, it wasn't the right thing to do, and if they could do it again, I'm sure they wouldn't. But I think in the heat of battle, sometimes that's just sort of how you act. So again, it didn't bother me as much then or now. But, obviously it has some repercussions because, it led to some other things, and it led to some bitterness still. And it's 30 years later. It's 30 years later, and you can tell that, Michael Jordan it's still like, and obviously Horace Grant, what he said. So,
right, you can't say that on.
I can't say that, right? I can't say that, but unless you got the button you can hit. I can tell you when to hit the button, and I'll say it. But yeah. So these guys are there's still some animosity about it, I think, and which is sort of amazing to me because even when it happened, I said, okay, it's just a game, and you just kind of think that stuff will blow over eventually, but clearly it hasn't. So.
But I guess Mike made a very valid point, and I get what you're saying. You would think it has blown over. We grown now, and they for real grown. They almost in their 60s, some in their 60s.
They grown and they got money.
Right.
And to me that
okay. They got for real money.
Right. So let it go.
But Mike made a valid point when he said, okay, especially that last time they lost when they should have won when Scotty was having the migraine and stuff.
Right.
They should have won. They possibly could have got past them that time.
Right.
And I'm like you. I'm glad they didn't because they needed to get more tougher mentally and physically. But Mike said it hurt me. I was so hurt, but I still went and shook their hand. It was hurtful that we had lost that game because we should have won that series. But I still went and shook their hand. And then Isaiah mentioned the fact, he said, Boston didn't shake our hands, and which is true. But did you see the video they showed when it was Isaiah went and ran up to Kevin McHale.
Yeah.
To I guess try to talk to him or whatever, and Kevin was like, man, whatever, pretty much. He was kind of blowing him off. But you saw when he put his hand out and the shake, it was just like he hit his hand. Isaiah hit his hand dang, you could at least shake my hand.
Right.
So he seemed to have had an issue with it too, but he just didn't bring it up. So, of course, if people who don't like Mike, they're saying he's a whiner, whatever. You can see it as that, but apparently that's something that really bothered him. And so, but it is what it is. I can't believe, like you said, that they're still upset about this handshake.
And I think if Isaiah had made the dream team, I think they probably could have squashed it.
You're right.
When he didn't make the Olympic team, and obviously some people say that Jordan didn't want him on the team, and I think that's why Isaiah hadn't got over it. And I get that. I get that part of it too. Yeah.
Cause
I mean, there were people that said that. Yeah, and they were saying that, and there were some people even say that Mike said, I'm not going to be on the team if Isaiah's on it. And then, I mean, they've even said that Magic and Isaiah, they've since squashed their little beef about that same thing. Because I don't think Magic really stuck up for Isaiah, who was, his best friend at the time,
right,
and he didn't try to fight for him to get on the team. And so I understand why. I mean, Isaiah was one of the best players in the league at the time, and he probably deserved a spot on that team over John Stockton.
He did.
Somebody, yeah. So
he did, and I agree with that. He did. I mean, one thing although I hated Detroit Pistons as a whole, Isaiah was one of the coldest players that
he was cold. He was
cold. And, I hate, sometimes, but I mean, Michael had a lot of clout.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he was the face of the league. So yeah,
he's the face of the league, and and that's what Isaiah said on the interview. I don't know if you've seen it. It was him, J. Rose.
Oh, the one with him and Jalen. Yeah,
that was a good interview.
It was like 20. It was really good.
It was
and there's actually this. I think this was, I can't remember what year, the 50 greatest players. The NBA did that, maybe 95, 96. But they had like a photo shoot for it, and in the photo shoot, they decided to do like a separate one of all the the legends from the 80s and 90s, and they had it was like Dr. J, Barkley, and Moses Malone from the Sixers. It was Stockton and Malone from the Jazz, McHale and Bird from the Celtics, Scotty and Michael from the Bulls, Magic, Worthy, and Kareem from the Lakers. And anyway, in the picture, Isaiah looked around and he's like, "Oh, I ain't got no teammates here." So that shows you how good he was. I mean, he didn't have any of those great. I mean, he had some good players around him, but he didn't have any of those superstars like those other guys. And so I do think Isaiah. I mean, I think he probably doesn't get talked about enough because he was really good. There was one game he scored 24 points in one quarter with a hurt leg. I mean, he was a really good player. Yeah.
I mean, I was not, impressed at that time.
Right.
But I knew, I'm like, girl, if you love basketball like you say you do, that was pretty dope. 24 points on one. Yeah, I mean, come on. He was that guy. He was that guy.
Yeah.
But, whatever. Still a little bad blood between me and them. But before we move on from this, I want to say John Paxson was one of the coldest three-point shooters ever.
He was.
This for the Bulls came when MJ trusted Paxson to shoot in that series. Mike was always used to being the closer or Mr. Clutch, and having to step away and allow someone else a chance to shine. I'm sure that was hard for him.
Right.
Plus, the Pistons were expecting the ball to go to MJ, and the rest is history. I mean, when did you see MJ grow up as a player?
I think
grow as a player.
I think that was a big moment for him, and he talked about Paxson hitting that very first shot. I mean, he threw it over to Paxson. Paxson hit it. If Paxson doesn't make that shot, I don't even know if Jordan has that confidence in him anymore.
Oh yeah, it'd been over.
Right, that game could turn out differently, and throughout his career, I mean, you just saw that Jordan started believing in his teammates more. I mean, through the Steve Kerr hit the shot. I mean, so he started counting on guys like Tony Kukoc. So I mean, that made him better. I mean, just whenever you're a team and you don't have to carry the load and you start trusting the other guys, I think it obviously makes the teams better, and that's what he did.
Yeah. So it was just interesting to see how he grew as a player, and like you said, when he started trusting his teammates, that's when things just really kind of turned around for the Bulls, and as well as himself, because it was like now the pressure is kind of off me, even though it was like we still wanted to make sure, Mike was like there.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, him having to adjust to the triangle offense. I mean, they actually talked about that and sort of went into some of the details of the offense. But just for Jordan to have to accept that and realize that it wasn't going to be, it wasn't just, I shoot. He had to start counting the players, and, he didn't really love that idea at first, but, he adapted to it, and really big difference for that team.
One more question. Do you think the Bulls would have won a ring with Collins still coaching?
I was going to mention that earlier when we were talking about Phil. I don't know, because I don't know if – I think Doug Collins would have had to adjust his strategy. And I don't know if he would have done that, because I don't think Michael could have got past the Pistons by himself. I mean, he was going to have to learn to rely on his teammates. And, Doug Collins was all about Michael Jordan. And, I mean, and I'm not saying he wouldn't have ever won, but I don't know if they would have had that dynasty. I just don't know if it would have worked out like that. They may would have got one or two maybe, but again, Michael may have changed his whole. After you keep trying and it doesn't work, maybe Michael would have made the adjustments too. So I mean, you just never know how that stuff's gonna play out.
And and don't get me wrong. I mean, he did a lot under Doug Collins. He was the Defensive Player of the Year. He was an All-Star. Right. He was a slam dunk contest winner. He was the top scorer. So I mean, he did a lot of things under Doug. But I'm like you. If they may not have, I don't know. I don't know if they would have had the dynasty that they have today. If, like you said, if Collins hadn't changed his coaching style, and Mike was immature then. He wanted, it was like, just give me the ball.
Right.
I know what to do. Just give me the ball. Even when they was like, part 2 last week when they were, they was like limiting his play because of his, when he hurt his leg.
Right.
And he was so angry and mad about it. But, I'm glad they did it, because it was just like, we understand you feel like you better, it's your leg, your ankle or whatever, but we have an investment in you and we have to protect it. So, I'm like you. I don't think if he hadn't changed his coaching style, maybe not. They probably wouldn't have, but who knows? I'm glad it never happened. So
now, I did see that the Bulls, this is off the top a little bit, but they did hire a new GM the other day, and it's a black guy, which is
the first black
pretty Mark Eversley. So, and that's a guy that worked his way through the ranks. He used to work at the Nike or something, doing something. He just sort of worked, and so anyway, I just kind of thought it was interesting that happened during all this stuff going on.
I know. I'm so excited about that, and you never know. We may end up getting a black coach, behind this, and it's not about the color. I just want to win. I'm not. But I'm glad the diversity is becoming, coming into the front office.
Right.
Times have changed, and it's like, it's some very smart people of color that can do that job. And so I'm just glad that he got the opportunity. So I was excited. I can't think of his name right now, and I'm so sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I posted it on She Say Sports on Facebook. But
it's always good when we get those opportunities. Yes.
Yes.
I was watching the NFL and even the NFL draft last week. Normally, we don't really get a chance to see who the coach and the GMs are. I mean, they may show them. They show them in the room, but now you saw them in their homes, and I mean, there wasn't a lot of black people making those decisions. It's only 4 black coaches, and even the GMs. I mean, I know the Dolphins have one, but you got a chance to see the coach and the GM both in their respective homes on the split screen, and I was like, man, it's the NFL is 70% black, but we're not the ones who are making the decisions.
Yeah,
I mean, that's still a lot of work to do.
It's a lot of work to do. I actually, I don't know if you Jamian Spencer. He used to play NFL. He was with Tampa Bay, also Philadelphia. We actually did an interview a few months ago, and we talked about the Rooney Rule. And it's it's 2020 now. It's time to make some decisions, of letting people of color in those positions. I mean, it's I'm like you, it's 70%. The NFL is 70% African American. And I asked him, because he played for why can't I remember these coaches' names? Oh my God.
Tony Dungy.
He played for Tony at Tampa, and he played for I love him too. White guy. He had on the Hawaiian shirt at the NFL draft. What is his name?
Oh, Andy Reid.
Yeah, Andy.
Andy
so he
Reid,
played for both of them.
Okay.
So he was excited for Andy, you know, of course, winning the Super Bowl this year. But he said he didn't realize it was a different, because, you know, growing up, even in, you know, from junior high on up to, of course, he played for Notre Dame. So he never had a black coach until Dungy. So he was like, he didn't even realize it was any different. And he said it was not necessarily different, but it was just the fact that it was like somebody looked like me, is, you know, making the plays. And so that was, he said that was pretty exciting for him. And both of them are great coaches. I love Andy Reid. I really, you know, I think he's really cool.
Yeah.
So,
but even on the draft, like when you're looking at in their homes, I mean, like they got their kids, they're hanging around and they're getting to be a part of all that stuff. And even that, for those kids, for those coaches, like that's kind of getting your foot in the door. And we just don't have that kind of exposure because we don't get to be around it. So, I mean,
we don't.
I mean, it's a lot of levels to why those numbers are so bad. And we got to get our foot in the door somehow. And until we do, the numbers are going to continue to be bad. So.
I agree. Well, Rod, thank you so much again for joining me today. Let the listeners know how they can follow you.
On Twitter, I'm at Rod Walker Nola. And on Instagram, it's rwalker1906.
R Walker.
And Facebook is just Rod Walker. So I didn't get a chance to see I haven't seen any promos for next week, but I did see people. Is Kobe a part of the next episode, or
I don't remember seeing Kobe.
I thought I saw like something on the internet maybe just saying like Kobe, and they were talking about it. So I don't know if they're talking to him some. They got some old footage of him or what, but
that would be really good.
Yeah,
I would love to see that. If so, I'm just excited. I'm ready for next week. I mean, well, Sunday rather, and I'm just. Some friends was a little perturbed with me because they had a Zoom. I'm like, oh my God, why am I so popular? I was at a Zoom happy hour Friday. I was at a Zoom baby shower, a Zoom surprise party, and then there was another Zoom party Sunday. But I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to make that. And they was like, I know, because Michael. So they called me 20 minutes, text me 20 minutes before it started, and they was like, just jump on real quick. No. I was like, I can't. I mean, I was like, I can't because I'm not going to play. I don't want to miss the first part of it at all. I was like, I got to do a show on this, and I need to concentrate. So, so, I mean, I'll do the Zoom parties, people, but it can't be on the Sunday
from 8 to 10, right. I think eventually they are going to talk about some of Michael's vices, like they're going to get into the gambling and something I've kind of heard that. Yeah, I mean, so I think they are going to try to be a little transparent on some of that stuff.
They need to be because he was a mess with that. He was a hot mess, and I really, you know, sometimes, you know, people were saying that his dad got killed because of, you know, dealing with his gambling, and I don't know if that was for sure. I don't know, but yeah, that was a huge vice for him.
That's a big part of and it was a big part of his story, so
it's a big part of his story, period. But okay, and you can reach me. Wait a minute, you about to hang up to my all right. I got to send you something also after a video real quick. It's like a 3-minute video. Let me know what you think. This comedian Marvin Hunter. Do you know him? Are you familiar with him?
I don't know the name.
He's from Big Bird, Mississippi, but he lives in Atlanta, but he is hilarious. Comedian Marvin Hunter. And he did a video today regarding who's the GOAT. And I just want you to check it out. But anyway, you can reach me on Facebook at She Say Sports, on Instagram She Say Sports 23. And that's our show today. I'll see you guys on the radio, and thank you for listening to She Say Sports.